Hello, and welcome to We Are Just Two Idiots, the fastest growing podcast in the Chicagoland area. I am your host, Steve Michaels. You can follow us on Instagram and X at We Are Just Two Idiots. And as always, you can email us at wearejust2idiots@gmail.com for comments and feedback. I'm joined, as always, this evening by my co-host, Duke Ross. Duke, how you doing this evening?
I'm nervous, Steve. I'm nervous. And it's not because, the Knicks are losing by 20 over to my left. I'm nervous for what's about to come out of your mouth.
Oh, boy. Nah, don't worry about that. How about this, then? Before we get into our topic for today's podcast, I thought we would try a little something new. You up for that?
I'm always up for anything, Steve. You know that.
All right, here we go. In honor of the National Hockey League Finals taking place right now, and for those that don't know, the Las Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes are tied 2-2 after last night's thrilling Carolina victory. You know, the incredible finals. The rating this year of the NHL Finals have gone up by about 100% from last year's. So although we have two small market teams in Vegas and Carolina, many people have claimed it to be one of the best finals in the past several years.
Steve, question.
Yes.
100% of zero is what?
I'm pretty good at math. I think that's zero.
I'm kidding. I am sort of kidding. So I did look. I checked. Ratings are up. They're up legitimately what you said, 100%. What's 100%? That being said, we're at like 5 million. So 5 million people watched it. And I looked at a few things. MLB baseball, two teams that were kind of they were just at about 10 million viewers. And then I looked, the Seahawks and Rams. I don't know if you know this. Do you know or no? How many people watched that game?
Why, NFL clears everything by 5-10 times probably.
It was like 55 million people watched the Rams and the Seahawks to see who would go to the Super Bowl. So, and then obviously the Super Bowl is like 100 million. That's nothing. That's stupid. But yeah, I mean, that's, goes to show you where football is and where hockey is. But hockey is growing, and I hope, listen, you joke, you belittle it a little bit, but it's a very niche sport, and I hope it continues to grow. Why not?
All right, but you claim to be an expert on all things sports. Am I correct?
Except hockey.
Oh, okay. Then this is gonna be fun. So I think it's gonna be a good test tonight. We're gonna test Duke's hockey knowledge by playing a little game. I say, let's call it: is this person a hockey player or a Russian physicist? Duke, you up for the challenge?
Sure.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna put down your answers here on my piece of paper. Okay, here we go. The first individual is Alexander Stotov, hockey player or Russian physicist?
Look, I don't want to hurt your game. I love what you're trying to do, but these are going to be somewhat potential all guesses. We're going to go with physicist because I literally have no idea, Steve.
All right, Russian physicist. Okay. The next one is Artem Levshunov. Hockey player or Russian physicist?
I mean, can I just say, I can go 50%. I'm guessing you have two of one, two of the other.
This is just like you in high school when they did true false, Duke. You always
this is the ACTs. They said just go right down the middle and you'll get at least one. Look, let's say the name again. Seriously, say the name again.
Artyom Levshunov.
Very much sounds like. Let's go with physicist one more time. I don't even know what I said the first time, but we'll go with
physicist. You said Russian physicist for number one. All right, the next one. Ivan Demidov. Ivan Demidov.
That almost sounds familiar to me.
No, this is not Rocky IV.
No, whatever. Were you just watching that tonight, by the way?
I just watched that with my son and his girlfriend, yeah.
All right, I'm sure I'm just making a mockery of your game, but we'll go hockey player.
All right, hockey player. Duke says hockey player. The next one is Yevgeny Shevhusky.
I mean, that is absurd. Here's the thing. A Sports Center anchor couldn't do these names either. They would just bypass the entire thing.
I can be a Sports Center anchor easily. I don't think I want to work for ESPN now, but Evgeny Zavyosky.
I mean, that absolutely sounds like a hockey player to me.
All right. And last but not least, Anna Kournikova.
Well, now you're just in my wheelhouse and you're just being nice to me. You have to be a certain age, I think, to appreciate Anna Kournikova. And I do believe that you may have, even though you're 2 years younger, I think you discovered her before anybody else. And I don't even know when you were watching women's tennis or not. But somehow, at some point, you did discover Anna Kournikova. And I think we both appreciate her talents.
So you're saying she's a hockey player?
I think we all know she's a wonderful tennis player, female.
All right, so not a hockey player. All right. All right, Duke, let's see how you did. Let's score these up. The first one was Alexander Stotov. You said he was a Russian physicist.
What is he?
You're correct.
How about that?
He invented the photoelectric cell. Great job, Duke.
Thank you so much. I know my Russian physicists, apparently.
Okay, Artyom Levzhinov. You said he was a Russian physicist. Boy, that couldn't be more wrong. Artie, as we Blackhawk fans like to call him, was the number 2 overall pick taken by the Chicago Blackhawks.
Holy
So
smokes.
that
Is he good? Did he have a good year?
Not really. He's very much maligned. He was a minus 41 this year, so we're counting on big things from Artie next year. The next one was Ivan Demidov. Duke said he was a hockey player, and he
Confident.
is correct.
Who does he play for? I really have no idea.
Ivan Demidov is, of course, the star forward for the Montreal Canadiens.
Is he a star?
He sure is. The Blackhawks GM Kyle Davidson foolishly passed on him in the 2024 draft. Duke, you're doing pretty good here. You got 2 out of 3. The next one was Evgeny Zavyosky. Duke said he was a hockey player. Actually, Duke, he is a Russian physicist. He invented the EPR spectroscopy. I don't even know if I'm saying that right.
What is that?
I don't know, but I only know hockey. So you got that one wrong. And, of course, because I like you so much, I threw you a freebie. Anna Kournikova. Of course she's not a hockey player. As any red-blooded heterosexual male would know, as Duke correctly pointed out, she's a former tennis player and Russian model who was with that lucky bastard Enrique Iglesias.
He's a handsome man.
He is a handsome man.
And I think they have like 5 kids together, believe it or
They
not.
do, and they are not married. Wow. Okay, so that was a good segment. You did pretty good. 3 out of 5, 60%. That's about how you did in high school and college, so I'm proud of you.
That is pretty close to what I did, actually.
All right, let's now move on to the main topic for today's episode.
Well,
and if you
Did you appreciate making fun of my hockey knowledge?
you can make fun of some knowledge of
thereof.
me. Yeah, I tell you what, Duke, you can test me on the WNBA the next episode.
All right, we're going to try NBA. You're not even watching the NBA Finals, so
Hey,
we'll
I
test
tried
on
watching it tonight. The first time I turned it on, Jalen Brunson goes into the lane. He
I'm
jumps
listening to him,
into
just
he jumps into 3 defenders without even making a basketball play, and they bail him out with a foul call. I can't watch it. Can't do it. And I like Jalen Brunson. He's from Stevenson High School, nearby where we're from. And
10 minutes from my house.
exactly, yeah, I can't watch it. Okay,
All right, well, that was a huge comeback, Steve. Huge comeback. Knicks are winning. Somehow they're down 25, and they're back.
they were down like 20 in the first half.
25, now they're up by 1.
Oh, man,
It's a
gambling and
podcast,
that.
so move along.
All
with
right,
our
let's
podcast,
move.
Steve. I don't mean
All
that.
right, so in part 1, we dove into the Bears Stadium announcement to Hammond, Indiana, and the role that JB Pritzker and the Illinois state government had in it. For today, though, we're going to dive deeper on JB Pritzker and his run as governor and his bid for re-election for a 3rd term this upcoming November. I think before we get started, it's important to note that neither Duke or I claim to be expert in politics. All we try to do is present factual research data to provide our listeners something to digest and make their own informed opinions. And this is important. By no means do we want to alienate or offend our listeners, friends, family, coworkers, whoever it may be. The objective is just go through the data and have a healthy discussion and debate on it. Duke and I debate a lot of things. We don't see eye to eye on a bunch of things, but we've known each other for over 35 years, and we can still totally be chill about it. Anything you want to add on there, Duke, before we get into the body of the topic?
No, I think we covered everything our lawyer said we should cover to make sure we did not get in trouble. And, we're good to go.
Totally true. Okay, here we go. Let's start. So I've listed 4 key things that from a personal point of view I believe are most critical when you perform your civic duty and go out to vote for your elected officials. The first one is and I'm going to define them a little bit more in depth as we go through them. The first one is your individual financial well-being. The second one is crime. The third one is education. And then I would call the fourth one just your overall economic standing from a state and city perspective. So I think I'm going to go into data on those 4 key things. I'm going to ask Duke for feedback as we go through those items. Duke may even have more things that, as a voter, that he would want to talk about. But why don't we get started? Okay. Let's talk about your individual financial well-being. Now, I'm going to define that as the ability to put a roof over my family's head, food on the table, clothes on their back, lights on, all that stuff that you hear. When I put my hand in my pocket to reach for cash, credit card, Apple Pay, something automatically withdraws from my checking account, am I happy financially based on what the politicians in my state, county, town are doing fiscally? So let's look at JB Pritzker's policies and their impacts. Here we go. Illinois ranks number 1 in the U.S. with respect to paying the highest combined state and local tax rate in the country. Number 1. But what does that mean? What is state and local taxes? What does that actually, what makes that up? All right, let's get into a little bit depth there. The first one is property taxes, your taxes on your real estate. Illinois has the highest effective property tax rate in the U.S. It's more than double the national median. Income tax. Okay, this is what you pay to state and local governments based on wages, investments, income, etc. Here's where Illinois is okay. They have a flat 4.95% state income tax rate, which ranks in the middle of the pack in the country. Here in Florida, we have no state income tax. That's the reason why all professional athletes want to play for one of the teams down here. But one thing about JB Pritzker, dating back to his first year in office, he tried like heck to eliminate the Illinois flat income tax and replace it with the progressive income tax. If that would have passed, that would have taxed middle-class Illinois citizens even more. Thankfully, the Illinois voters, I was there in Illinois in 2024, we shot that down, even though he was reelected for his second term. Other things that make it up are sales tax, taxes on purchases like retails, restaurant, entertainment. Illinois ranks 7th in the country in sales tax at an overall average combined rate of 9%. Chicago has the highest combined sales tax of any large major city in the country. The next one's important because that's called the excise tax. That's special taxes on specific products or activities, gasoline, cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, hotel game, whatever it may be. Let's just touch on a few of these. Illinois is the second highest gas tax in the country at 48 cents a gallon. JB Pritzker put into law that every July 1st, the tax will get raised. And he claims this is to fix roads and stuff like that for those that live in Illinois and drive on 290, 294, 94, 90, whatever it may be. There's always construction going on. Nothing's getting fixed. It's around the clock. Illinois is in the top 5 for cannabis taxation. Chicago and Cook County is the highest in the country, approaching over 40% effective tax rate. So I think it's pretty obvious when Pritzker was fully on board with making marijuana legal in Illinois. It wasn't because he didn't feel weed was bad. He cared more about it as a huge source of tax income for the state. Illinois is the top 3 in hotel taxes. Chicago is the number 1 in the U.S. Illinois is top 5 in the sports betting taxes, and when you include Chicago, the effective tax rate almost is exceeding 50%. Illinois has become one of the most aggressively taxed sports betting markets in America. I believe FanDuel in Wrigleyville has stated that they're going to close their doors because they just can't take it anymore. Illinois, due to Chicago, has the highest rideshare, Uber, Lyft, whatever it may be, taxes in the U.S., and Chicago has the highest streaming and amusement tax rate in the U.S. That's correct. Streaming and now social media is going to be taxed to the citizens in Illinois. Also, that makes it up is vehicle and transportation taxes and fees. Illinois is the second most expensive state for annual car registration. Utility and communication taxes, taxes on electricity, gas, water, cell phone, whatever it may be. Illinois is ranked number 1 in wireless and cell phone tax. Chicago and Cook County utility taxes are among the highest in the U.S. I mean, that was like a laundry list of things. There's just no way to spin it. If you live in Illinois, you're going to get the shit taxed out of you. So, Duke, I welcome your comments on that first category of individual finance.
Let's make sure something's really clear. As far as politics go, and we mentioned this in our previous episode, when we're talking, we are doing our very, very best to make sure we're just giving the true facts, not trying to lean one way or another, just truly giving the facts. I think sometimes when it just comes naturally, if you are far right or if you are far left, you're going to look for facts, you're going to look for data that helps your point. And with the internet now, you can go anywhere and find anything that will prove your point. And I don't know. We'll find out, Steve, in the end, if you have a point to prove.
Yeah.
That being said, I did very similar research to you, and everything you said is accurate. Everything, all the taxing, we are. I saw we're number 2 in the nation for property tax, not number 1. I think New Jersey was number 1. Has that switched in 25 or 26 that you're looking at? I don't know, but I saw us number 2. One thing I do know, Pritzker, because of the gas prices going so high, July 1st, he put a hold on escalating any of the taxes for this year. But, with that, everything else is true. We are an incredibly taxed state. And it's not always easy to live here. And there's a max exodus, and we'll get to that later. There's a max exodus of people, of corporations, and, it's kind of unfortunate. So go ahead. Let's keep rolling.
Okay, the next I want to talk about is crime. And I want to lay this out by comparing crime figures to New York City and Los Angeles, because when you think about, the country, those are the three largest cities in the country. Just for reference, New York City has 3 times the population as Chicago, and LA has about 1.5 times the population as Chicago. As it pertains to total homicides, Chicago has led the nation in total homicides. That's total. Chicago has 1.5 times the homicides of New York City and 2 times that of LA. Just this year in 2026 to date, there have been approximately 160 homicides reported in the city of Chicago. That's averaging 1 homicide per day. Chicago has had more rape and sexual assaults than both New York City and LA in the period for which Pritzker has been governor. Chicago has 1.5 times the amount of aggravated assaults per 100,000 residents than both New York City and LA. And Chicago has more robberies per 100,000 residents than New York City and LA. Being number 1 is not the statistic you want to be in when it comes to crime. But the most controversial policy to date from JB Pritzker is the Safety Act. And that's Safety Act as in SAFE-T, not safety, the word safety. That stands for Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act. And the most controversial portion of that act is the Pretrial Fairness Act, which eliminates cash bail. And this was instituted in September of 2023. Well, what does that mean? We've heard that term quite a bit, eliminating cash bail. And what does that mean? Well, before that law was put into place, judges often set a dollar amount, cash bail, or if it's a money bond. Defendants who could afford it could go free before trial. Those that could not often stayed in jail. But under the Safety Act, judges no longer set cash bail. Judges now decide whether the defendant should be detained, released, or released with conditions. Okay, so what does that mean? That puts a lot of power in the hands of judges. Numbers vary. It's tough to find this, but the research I did said 7 out of 10 judges are Democratic and embrace leniency in most cases. In Carolina, the suspect in the horrific murder of the Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zarutska, had been arrested 14 times prior to again being let out and committing the crime. So, Illinois is the first and only state to fully abolish cash bail statewide. And I've looked for data. I made even a call. I'm like, where can I find out any data on how many defendants who were released back on the street went on to commit another criminal offense? That's not shared. The only time that we hear about it is really through the X social media platform and someone divulges it. So as it pertains to crime, I don't live in Illinois anymore. But if I still did, and even when I did live there, I don't feel safe in the city of Chicago based upon the crime data and the Safety Act. Duke, you lived in Chicago several years. You worked there several years. You got out of work at all hours of the night. This one's important, man. How do you feel about this category?
I mean, I lived in the city for 20 years. I always felt safe. Did I feel safe if I went, a mile west of the United Center on Madison Street? No, I don't think anybody would. There are certain parts of the city that are not safe, and it's unfortunate. It's been that way for a long time. Has the violence spread to areas, and forgive us if you're not in the Chicago area, but, the West Loop, the Gold Coast, Wrigleyville, Lakeview. Yeah, it has, but not leaps and bounds to where people are moving out. People are a little more careful, but, you talked about the big cities, and you have Chicago, New York, LA. I'm not going to question your data, but let's be honest, per capita, Chicago's murder rate, I believe, has gone down. And when you compare yourself to DC or New Orleans or Memphis, those per capita are far more dangerous than Chicago. And I don't know where Chicago falls per capita overall. But okay, if you're going to compare it to big cities, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But overall, it's unfortunate. People, if you don't live in the city and you just read the newspapers or you go, see stuff on social media, of course, you're going to think the city is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. People have been living their lives there since the last 7, 8, 9 years since I've lived there, and most people are just fine. The carjackings don't seem to be up. Murders don't generally happen in the nicer neighborhoods. It's sad to me that if you go to the south side of Chicago or the west side of Chicago, if you are, it doesn't matter what you are, if you're white, if you're Puerto Rican, if you're Mexican, if you're black, you don't feel safe living in your home. And I think there's a lot of people that truly don't feel safe, and they are living in an effing war zone. And it's been generations after generations. And here's the one thing where I'll push back. I don't think you can blame Pritzker for the troubles that we've had since the 70s. It's been going on and on. Has he fixed anything? Has he done anything to help? No, he's done certain things. If we'll go through some of the things he's actually done, and he's, banned assault weapons and other firearms, and he's tried to help. Is that enough? And that's going to upset the other side because people want their guns. It's not an easy subject to tackle because no one's ever had a good answer to how you help this. Nobody does. Education will help. Getting people out of poverty will help crime. But for the sake of the discussion that we're having now, my opinion, I don't think you can necessarily blame a man that's been governor, is it since 2019?
Yeah. He got elected in 2019. He took office in 2020.
For all the issues that this city has had for decades and decades. It's not fair.
Okay. I think you did say Has he improved it? And you said no, but you said we're going to go through some data later on what the things he has done. But I think one point that you called out that is a common response is that the crime concerns is isolated to certain pockets of the city, and as you who's been in the city for a long time, lived there and worked there, when it comes to Magnificent Mile, River North, Old Town, Wrigleyville, whatever it may be, you think that's not applicable in that, and that it's that they're safe.
They're safe. Listen, there are mob. I forget what you call them. There's groups of kids. Be
Teen
it 50.
takeovers.
Say it again.
Teen takeovers is what they call them.
A little bit, and mob riots, whatever it is. And yeah, they've gone to certain areas, and it's not great. Every single person, I talk to people all the time that are in the city, and they all say they feel safe. That's just the reality. That's what people say, and they love the city of Chicago. And my opinion, as I said, it's generations after generations of, if you're in the west side of Chicago, if you're in the south side of Chicago, it's not a fun place to live. And it's going to take a supreme effort, and it's not just one man that can figure this out. And I think I've had many, many discussions in my life as to how you can help the gun violence, the violence within itself, where we become used to, the 10 o'clock news pops on, and 6 people were killed in a shooting and a drive-by, and then, next story, someone was murdered sitting on their porch. And next story. And you don't even give it a second thought. And that's what's scary. When we've gotten to the point where we just don't seem to even be fazed by the fact that, 5 or 6, 16 or 17-year-old kids were murdered, or a baby was shot by a stray bullet. We go on to the next story instantaneously. And that's the problem. And how do you fix all that? And truth, it's a much bigger discussion, but it's education. Education is the beginning of changing the family history of, let's just say 2 kids that 20 years ago or 30 years ago were 16 years old and started having children, and their children did the same thing, and then their children repeated. And what's the common denominator? No education. And in my opinion, that's where it begins. And it's not just a governor thing, and it's a much greater discussion than what we're having right now. But of course, the governor. Can you tell me who's a governor before Pritzker?
I believe it was Bruce Rauner.
I don't even remember. That being said, he didn't do anything either. And the governors prior to that, and our mayors of Chicago.
But you are in like a corporate work environment now. Mm-hmm. I was in a corporate work environment for over 23 years. Ultimately, there has to be some levels of accountability, right? And until you solve it, you just can't say, well, the other guy didn't do it, and we're maintaining the status quo. Don't you think there's got to be some type of accountability eventually with the leadership?
Yeah, it's not a good answer. I would never say the answer is, well, nobody else did it either.
Yeah.
I think the answer is nobody can figure it out. And Pritzker certainly can't either. And if you want to hold that against him, hold it against him. But he doesn't have the answers, and I don't know if anybody has the answers across the entire country. There is violence across our entire country in every major city and a lot of the smaller cities. And nobody, whether you're a black politician, a white politician, if you grew up in the north, the south, the east, the west, nobody has these answers. There are no answers for systemic, just generation after generation of no chance to make it unless you get a winning lottery ticket. And Pritzker doesn't have the answer, I assure you, and a lot of people don't.
Okay, I think those are fair points. I want to move on to the next category, which was education. And this probably was the most difficult one to analyze because there are so many metrics out there on education. But for this discussion, I'm going to use the federal standardized reading and math scores for 8th graders and the SAT/SAT scores for 11th graders. Why did I choose 8th and 11th grade for metrics? I believe those are the two most important grades for a student. And 8th grade is important because you're going to high school and that GPA clock starts. And in 11th grade, you know, pretty much that's what you're going to learn in high school, and that's going to prepare you for college or the real world. So I think those are the two grades I identified. And we're going to look at proficiency. And, you know, from an education perspective, proficiency means can students perform at their grade level? So let's start at the 8th graders. So, you know, I'm going to really isolate this as the data from post-COVID, as the data during COVID pandemic was just horrific, and that's a whole separate topic on what the COVID pandemic did to our youth. But for 8th grade, both in reading and math, the reading and math proficiency is around 33%. That number has not improved in the last few years. What does that mean? Only 1 out of 3 8th graders in Illinois can read and do math at the 8th grade level. Those proficiency numbers, if specific to Chicago, are much worse than that, more so in math. Okay? For 11th grade, the reading was flat at 32% proficiency in 2023 and 2024, and then last year jumped up to 52%. And then in math, it was flat at 27% in years 23 and 24, and then jumped up to 39% in 2025. Again, the proficiency numbers specific to Chicago are significantly worse than that. But I do want to call out that the dramatic increase seen between 24 and 25 does not reflect a sudden surge in classroom performance. It was actually caused by a structural change implemented by the Illinois State Board of Education, pushed by JB Pritzker, that they ended their contract with the SAT and they switched to ACT as the means to identify proficiency in the 2025 testing cycle. By August, the state officials had intentionally lowered the minimum score required to be labeled proficient. This policy change reclassified thousands of students as reading or doing math at a grade level who would have been marked non-proficient under the more stricter 2023 and 2024 SAT standards. I know that was a lot, but basically what this is one of the key elements in certain politicians' playbook. If you can't meet performance standards, the step is to lower the bar, shift the goalpost, whatever you want to call it. And this happens routinely in all things: education, crime data. A felony gets classified as a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor gets classified as a slap on the wrist. And the public's really not made aware of it. They just see the final numbers and shake their heads and say, yeah, okay. But what's the key takeaway from that data? What it shows is that our proficiency numbers are not getting better since the COVID restrictions were lifted in 2023. Does that mean we're investing less in education from our state budget? No, not really. The Illinois per pupil spending increased by 11% from 2023 until now. The Chicago per pupil spending increased by 40% from 2023. Also, Illinois teacher and Chicago teacher salaries have increased anywhere from 6 to 16% since 2023. So is the spend in education, in step in line with JB Pritzker's budget increases that he's had? No, it's not at that level, but there is investment in education. So it's like, okay, we're increasing teacher salaries. We've increased per pupil spend. Why aren't we seeing growth? That's the number one thing that you do in anything in life. You want to see improvement. You want to see growth. We have not seen growth in these proficiency scores since COVID restrictions were lifted. And I think that's the major thing. We can talk about, like, relative to other cities and other states, Chicago and Illinois are in the middle of the pack, but why aren't we seeing growth? So I think
Go ahead.
That's where I would land on education. That's where I would land on education, especially because property taxes are what feeds our public school systems. We know how much the property taxes have gone up, but our education numbers are not improving. Duke, go ahead. Please comment.
So this is a tricky subject. You have your data And look, I did just a quick Google search, and then I dove into it a little bit. And what I found was that Illinois' public schools were ranked 12th in proficiency. They moved up to 5th last year. So they're 5th in the country in public schools. That's inclusive of K through 12 performance, graduation rate, test scores, reading and math proficiency. That's what it's based on. So are scores lower? You did that full research. I did not, and I'm not going to pretend like I did. But again, it's unfortunate when we have the city of Chicago, we have the inner city schools that we know don't get the funding that some of the other schools get, be it in the north suburbs, the west suburbs. The teachers don't get paid the same, so the teachers aren't the same, and you get a lower level teacher. The education isn't the same when you are in the inner city of Chicago versus the suburbs. And it is going to drag down those scores. And again, tell me how you can blame Pritzker if he's given extra funding, and we can ask where this funding goes. I do know some of this funding, we have a huge problem with pensions, with teachers, police, and fire. A lot of the money that we give, be it from our property taxes or from money that the government is giving to education, is going just to keep the pensions alive and making sure there's actual physical money in there for the pensions. But can you, and tell me how. I mean, I want to hear, how do you blame Pritzker for, again, generations of poor education in the city and kids in the suburbs getting the upper hand because just for where they live?
Yeah, I think one thing that I do want to, I don't want to say correct your data. I do want to be clear.
Go ahead, please.
Chicago public school teachers make more money than suburban teachers. It's a fact. It's a fact.
See that data.
They do. And
there's no way that a teacher at a Chicago public school makes more money than someone at Stevenson or Libertyville High School. They'd all be wanting to work in the city if that was the case.
Okay, we'll have to look at the data.
We'll come back to that. We'll pull it up. Not in this episode, but
okay.
Why don't all these, they don't want the commute? That's the only reason they don't want to go to the city? If they were paying more in the city, they would go there. And it's a dream to, listen, I know the north suburbs. That being said, if you lived in Naperville, if you're a teacher at Naperville Central or the grade schools there, I have a very hard time believing, and I would love to see that information that says that a city teacher makes more than a suburban teacher, especially in the north suburbs.
Okay, we'll look that up and we can bring it back to another episode.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And I think what data you said is good. I think I commented about why the numbers in 2025 accelerated because they lowered the bar. But I didn't look at K through 12 data. As I started in my preface, that I looked at 8th grade and 11th grade. Just because of, I was a teacher for 3 years, I know how important 8th grade is going into high school. I taught 8th graders. And I had to reemphasize to them, like, hey, this is your last freebie year because once you start getting a grade point average, that's what goes on your college admissions.
And right? Listen, forgive me, just make sure that point is noted.
Yeah.
Illinois went from 12 to 5. And that's not me like trying to find something great. That's me just going onto Google and diving deeper and finding it. And that's the reality. In Illinois, that's where we're at. We're 5th.
Yeah, my biggest concern is the lack of improvement. I
don't know. That sounds like an improvement, 12 to 5.
Well, I gave you the proficiency numbers, right? We'll have to look at that 12 to 5. That's inclusive of K to 12.
All right. Well, listen, we got great kindergartners. I'm proud.
All right. Let's move on to the last category, and that's the overall economic well-being of Illinois and Chicago. I would define that as, is Illinois and Chicago a booming economic hub that is driving growth and is a desired destination to be at? Before we get there, let's just look at some general data. The Illinois state budget was $40 billion in 2020 and is now ballooned up to $56 billion in 2026. That's like a 40% increase. In years of 2020 to 2022, Illinois was directly provided $18 billion from the federal government for COVID relief. So a lot of money's coming in. We got a big budget. A lot of money came in from the federal. And the question is, where's all that money going? Okay, because I know we had a disagreement on education. Education crime data has not shown improvement post-COVID. We'll go through that. We'll have to deep dive that education later. But is it going into investments and creating jobs in the private sector? This is one of the most important metrics. Is anybody can create jobs in the public vicinity because that's taxpayers are paying for those jobs. But are we creating jobs in the private sector? Well, only 10,000 jobs have been added in the private sector in JB Pritzker. That ranks 44th in the country in terms of post-pandemic job recovery. Illinois' job growth is 1/3 of the national average. So that is a very scary metric because we're not creating private jobs. Well, maybe it's making Illinois a desirable destination for large corporations. Well, actually, it's not. Several major corporations have moved headquarters from Illinois and Chicago, mainly due to the excessive corporate tax, which is the second highest in the U.S. at 9.5%. There could be other factors that play there, maybe crime, whatever it may be. Boeing, Caterpillar, Citadel, Tyson Foods, Morton Salt, you name it, those have all left the state. What that means is thousands of jobs have left. Typically, those people that leave, those are high-income taxpayers. We lose talented individuals. And one thing to note, we're losing companies. Not one Fortune 500 company or large corporation has relocated to Illinois during Pritzker's tenure. A lot of the things that you see on the news is he's given subsidies to existing corporations here, and they're expanding. But that's not creating jobs. There's a lot of stuff that says there's predicted job growth, but those jobs have not come to fruition, as you can tell by the only 10,000 jobs that have been created in the private sector. Next, I think Duke talked about migration to, people leaving the state earlier. Is Illinois a desired location to move to? Not really. Illinois ranks 48th in the country with net domestic migration. If you want to know what net domestic migration means is more people are leaving the state than coming in by 418,000 since 2020. And these people that are leaving, are middle income families. They're providing revenue, be it purchases. They're providing tax revenue. So, and it's, you got to assume that the people that are coming in are not that. Okay, they're more of the lower income bracket, and they're not going to be coming in as much tax revenue, etc. But then when that happens, you get taxed more to make up for it. So when I look at and those are just a few metrics. I mean, in the city, the vacancy rate, the availability rate in the Loop and in River North, et cetera, is nearing 50%. So, I mean, it's overall, we got Illinois citizens are leaving at record numbers. Large corporation headquarters are relocating. We've got like zero to minimum job growth in the private sector, and we've got really high vacancy rates in downtown Chicago. Storefronts are empty. So,
Sure.
Duke.
I'm going to read this to you, Steve. You hit on some of the businesses, and I've got a list here, and there are a lot of what you said. Peak Six Investment LLC moved to Austin. Thoughtful AI, Austin. Caterpillar, Irving, Texas. Boeing, Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah.
Tyson Foods shuttered back to Arkansas. TTX went to North Carolina. Citadel, Miami. Stellantis closed a plant. Tenneco, Detroit. Schumacher Electric, who charges for batteries. Fort Worth, Texas. And United Airlines closed one of theirs.
Wait, did United close in Rolling Meadows? Or you're just saying somewhere in Illinois?
I don't know if it was the Rolling Meadows,
Okay.
but they closed, what is it? One of their primary facilities is what I have. You see, one thing is very clear, right? Texas. There is no state income tax. They are, let's just say it like this, they're wheeling and dealing. Same way with the state of Florida is as well. And those two states are getting an awful lot of business. I mentioned in the previous podcast, Miami is becoming a little tech giant. And why? Because they're giving breaks. You know, and this is the same thing that goes back to our conversation with the Bears. If we can't figure out a way to give the Bears a break, and we said it, they're a very unique 1 out of 32, figure out a way. You have to find some kind of balance that works for us and works for them. It's the same thing with all these corporations. You know, why are they going to Florida besides all the tax breaks that they're being offered? You know, they're also close to South America, and it makes it very easy for them to continue the business there. You have beautiful weather. You know, we don't exactly have beautiful weather in Chicago, in Illinois. Everyone says Chicago's the greatest city in the world in the summertime for 3 months. Outside of that, it's not a whole lot of fun to live, you know, in the cold temperatures. Nobody really enjoys it. You know, Florida, beautiful weather. Texas, beautiful weather. If we can't figure out by looking at everything, and this is where Pritzker has to be held accountable. What are you doing to keep big business? Do you want people to stay here? That migration, it's just not people, it's corporations are migrating out. And why would they stay here? If their taxes are higher, if we're not doing anything to keep them, you have to make people feel good. You have to make corporations feel good in any kind of a relationship. And if they're going to get, as we said, states are competing against each other. Open your eyes. Realize that it's not, oh, you don't want it? Well, hard pass then. See you later. It affects our state, and it's affecting our state. And you're losing, you know, these are big corporations with educated people. Do we want to lose these types of people? We don't. And it's hundreds of thousands of people we're losing, and it's a huge problem. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to just say, God, look at what we're doing. It's not working. What can we do to make it work? What can we do to bring big business back here and not lose? And to a certain degree, it's too late for all these companies. Is it too late for the Chicago Bears? No. They can still put their best foot forward and give them the deal that they're looking for that will still benefit the state of Illinois. And it's the same thing with big business. Give people what they're looking for, what they're getting from other states. They're going to benefit. We don't have Disney World to help us with taxes. We don't have, and I don't know what it is in Texas. I don't know if it's the oil. I don't know. There's still obviously an awful lot of big business and tech out west. And I don't know if it's going anywhere outside of Florida, but we are obviously doing something incredibly wrong.
Yeah, good points. Good points. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a good parallel to what's going on with the stadium. I totally agree with that. So, Duke, those are my 4 categories. Is there anything you want to touch upon before I tie a bow on those 4 items? Because I'm sure I said what Steve thinks are the most important things when I perform my civic duty to vote. There's a lot of things that I didn't list that I'm sure a lot of people, gender, race, whatever it may be, will have of a higher priority. So what do you have, Duke? Anything you want to add?
I don't want to add anything to what you said. I mean, I think I made the points that I did and the things that I agreed with, some of the things that I didn't. I have a list here very quickly. I'm going to do it in 30 seconds of things that I pulled off through my research of things that are accomplishments of Pritzker's. Like it or not, agree or not, these are some of the accomplishments, big or small. Credit upgrades for the first time in 20 years, lowered interest rates for the state. Paid down states' bills backing. Illinois, I can't even read my writing. Oh, our credit rating did go up. We improved our credit rating. I think that is a fact. Can you agree with that or no?
It did. It was almost at junk territory. It had nowhere to go but up.
Okay, you can't diminish something that went up.
I just want to set and did you say balanced budget? What was the one you said before? I forgot what you said to the first one.
The first one was he actually increased Illinois' credit rating.
And okay, all right.
He did. It's true.
I know.
I read it.
I think unfortunately it's still one of the lowest in the country, but that's okay. Keep going on, please.
All right. He increased spending for the state for K through 12 in education, reformed police and fire pensions, improved infrastructure, roads, bridges, schools, etc. He banned assault weapons and other dangerous weapons. A lot of people did not appreciate that, but that he passed the Climate and Equitable Job Act. And we can talk about COVID, good and bad, but he represented, I don't know how to say this because people are going to be like, you're out of your mind. But there's an awful lot of people out there that feel like he kept our state safe.
Yeah,
Was there some harm done to our schools? We did what many states did, Republican or Democratic. There was a couple of states, Florida, Texas, that said, hey, we're opening the schools. We're opening wide. Come to us. And maybe in the end they were right. They gambled and won. But
yeah, just for the record, JB Pritzker actually moved his family down here during COVID in Florida so that they don't have to deal with the Illinois lockdown.
Yeah.
And it's personal because like my nephew loved the kid to death. He was the varsity quarterback at his high school. And because of the COVID lockdowns, he did not get to enjoy that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in his life because of COVID. And I just think about that when the COVID lockdowns hit. But, like,
look,
I don't...
My nephew, Jacob, was a junior at the time going into a senior year.
Yeah.
I can't remember if his junior year was completely rocked.
It was both years. Yeah.
But I do know his senior year was cut in half, and it sucked for him. I believe, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, he was the captain of the soccer team at Stevenson, and
Yep.
he was a really, really good player. But guess what? At the time, we didn't know that this was more of an issue for seniors versus teens that may have not been affected outside of getting the flu, a bad flu. But my preference would have been for him to not play soccer and live and then find out, that we were, too aggressive and he died, or other kids for that matter. So my preference was, yes, I would have loved to have seen him play more and not miss out on his senior year, because a lot of his senior year was in his bedroom and it's probably sucked. But at least he was safe. And we didn't know. Nobody knew. And even our president, after a period of time, took extreme measures for safety.
That's fair.
I will say this about Pritzker. We're in a Democratic state. His job approval rating is just under 50%. So being in a state where, I don't know where, was he 65% of the vote? I don't know. I didn't check to see what
he demolishes his opponent every time. And he'll win again going away in November.
For sure.
But,
if he wants to, we do status quo. But this is true. His approval rating is just below 50%. And there are a lot of people, including myself, that are questioning his viability. And this is where I would love to veer. Let's pivot a little bit, okay? I know you wanted to put a bow, but let's pivot a little bit. And this is where I really want to gain the next few minutes of our discussion. Sports, you can get real heated, but you don't get angry. It's fun. Politics is very different. And when we're watching TV, you see debate shows on sports, you see debate shows on politics. When you talk to friends, I asked a lot of people, hey, tell me your thoughts on Pritzker. I would love to know, not knowing if they were on the right, the left, whatever their feelings were. Insults started coming. I don't know where
insults directed at you or insults directed at Pritzker?
I don't know where, and I don't know if it comes from the top down, where the top started insulting people, and then it's okay to start insulting others. But people that aren't exactly perfect start saying, that fat mother effer, that fat bastard, that slob. More insults that I can imagine coming from people that I didn't expect to hear it. And this is what I'm curious about, and I'm curious what your thoughts are and how you actually feel. People hate this man. I don't, and it's venomous. And for me, I never feel that way. Like my mind is so open and my heart is so open to hear both sides and really want to, get the opinions on this way, opinions over here, and then I want to make my decision off of the facts, and hopefully they're honest facts that I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why or how I can not feel so much anger towards somebody just for politics. He didn't hurt me personally. He didn't hurt my kids. Maybe, 7 steps away, he's hurting my kids, but he's not, hands-on hurting me. So I'm not so angry at him, but there are people that are so effing angry at this man. And I don't know if it's because he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth and everything was given to him and he hasn't earned this and he hasn't done anything. And, it's not jealous, but I mean, it's like somebody's like, oh, the guy doesn't even, when you see those videos of him walking down, Lakeshore Drive by the lake, he's got security with him. Well, no shit he does. He's the governor. The mayor has police, backup in front of his house. So they just say things. I mean, I had, when he passed, legalizing marijuana, I had someone that I respect an awful lot said, why they passed that? Because his family has marijuana farms. And those marijuana farms are getting all the weed for Illinois. And now they're making billions off of that. Well, I Googled it. There is no marijuana farms. They do have something going on in California with cannabis, but they're not growing their own effing weed. And there's just a lot of anger, hate, and I just don't know why or where it derives from.
I think that's well said.
Do you have? I mean, you got heated.
I mean,
when we were talking about it and about the beers, you got heated. Why?
Well, here's the thing that frustrates me is when we as individuals in the public are treated like we're idiots. Okay? And I think they think we're idiots because they keep doing it. Right? When JB Pritzker says that he's only cares about protecting the taxpayers, I really meant it in the last episode. That's full of shit. Okay? And I truly believe that. So when I see what he's doing on those 4 categories I reference, there's no hate. There's no, but like, I have to respect the office. So I respect him as governor, but like, as that leader of the state, I'm looking for results. Everybody I've worked for throughout my career in Motorola, that everything, there was accountability. And it's always like, what are you doing to improve? What are your KPIs? How are you showing that you're getting better? And when I listen to him, okay, the only thing that comes out of his mouth are a few things. It's either about POTUS. He never wants to talk about the real issues that are affecting this state. I'm not in Illinois anymore. Affecting Illinois. And that's what frustrates me. Okay? And that's why I don't think he's a good politician. I think he's an awful governor. And I think if he's the ticket in 2028 for the president, it will be an absolute disaster. That's how I feel, based upon, because I look at the data, and that's it. I mean, that's I had other things to tie a bow on it. You took some things there, but a guy that's worth $4 billion and his family's worth $40 billion, it's hard to sympathize him when he talks about education when his kids go to private schools, and he lives in the Gold Coast neighborhood. And like you said, when he goes on these walks to Oak Street Beach and along Lake Michigan, he's got probably 20 to 30 security with him, so he doesn't care about crime. I struggle with that. I want our leader, including the guy in the office today in Washington, D.C., I want these guys to not treat us like idiots, be clear upon the issues that are affecting everyday Americans.
Here's the problem with politics. One, before I hit that, I don't know if you or anyone else knows what's in JB Pritzker's heart and what he's trying to accomplish. You know, his actions are one thing, and you could look at his actions and make an opinion on that, but you don't know how much he cares and what he's actually trying to do. He's passed some bipartisan things to help, but you don't know. Accountability. There is no accountability in politics. People effing run amok. They do what they want, and when they're asked questions, they answer it by diverting. If you watch any news channel, nobody answers the questions that's asked to them because they're fucking afraid to give the answer. And I have no idea why. Stand behind what you do. And Pritzker falls into that category. He does not want to answer the hard questions. And the only accountability we have is what? To vote. That's the only accountability politicians have. And there's a lot of politicians that, if they are Republicans, they're terrified to say anything about the big man upstairs, because if he comes down on him, or if the politician comes down on Trump, they are in trouble. They are going to take a verbal beating, and Trump will get them. And when you talk about our politicians, the accountability is only every 4 years or 6 years or whenever we can vote. But here's the problem. You have so many states that only vote one way. So this is what upsets a lot of people in this state. If you are a Republican, you feel like your vote doesn't count because, generally speaking, we veer towards Democrat. We've had Republican governors, of course, but it's a very frustrating feeling when, if you are on the right, and you don't have to be way right, just on the right a little bit, your vote doesn't seem to ever matter for the president because we're always voting for a Democrat. That's what happens in Illinois. And I understand the frustration that someone would feel with that. But when we're talking, and we can, pretty much put a bow on this entire segment.
Yeah, let's tie this off.
I will say this. Voting is the only way we have to get to where we want to go, to voice our opinion, to say enough. And who knows what's going to happen if Pritzker's ratings are under 50% and things don't improve. There is a good shot that he will be knocked out by a Republican in the state. And we'll see where we go from there. We are a state, I don't know how many governors we've had that ended up in prison. I think we had 3. I don't know if I'm wrong with that. For sure 2. But there is a lot of corruption in this state. And there's a lot of people that feel that Pritzker is corrupt as well. And I think it's just an easy thing to say. If you don't like your governor, your senator, they're corrupt. You just say it. I have no idea if Pritzker's corrupt. I hope he isn't. But I had no idea that Blagojevich was corrupt. I had no idea in the 80s that James Thompson was corrupt. We don't know what the hell's going on in government. We really don't. There's a secret club that I would love to be able to uncover one day. I hope somebody, Pablo Torre has a podcast. I hope he tries to uncover what the hell is going on in the boys club and fucking politics.
All right, man. Let's definitely tie it off now. So great discussion, good debate, Duke, as always. You got a daddy diary you want to share?
I actually don't. I am so caught up in what we are doing tonight that if I had one, I don't think it's apropos.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I got anything. I do. My little one, Marissa, I just, we got her grades for this. I'm sorry, I was proud dad mode. We got her grades for her freshman year and her second semester. She got straight A's. Her GPA is above a 4.35, and she's ranked 4 out of 388 students in her class. And when it comes to that kind of stuff, everything else just washes off. So really happy that she did that. She moved from a completely different state, where she had plenty of friends. She moved here, made a ton of new friends, kicked ass academically, played some really good volleyball for her AAU team, and she's loving it here. So it's one thing that makes me happy as I sit down here in Naples is my youngest one.
That's impressive, Steve. 4 out of 400 and what?
4 out of 388.
That's solid work. And my daughter hit a baseball really hard.
All right. Probably definitely hitting better than the Cubs. I don't know if he. Wow. Well, I can't wait to do our Cubs episode. Right?
We can do a lot of Cubs episodes. It's bad, and we'll.
Oh God.
We just have to make sure we do some White Sox ones too, because there's some solid baseball being played on the South Side right now with big crowds.
If we don't do the White Sox, Clark will kill me.
White Sox are coming. I think we should just do Chicago baseball. How about that?
Are we gonna do one on the NBA Finals? Are you gonna make me watch? Well, our longest episode to date, but it was a topic that really needed to be discussed. And as always, we hope you found this informative, had some fun with it. We found out that Duke really doesn't know shit about hockey.
We knew that already.
We knew that already. All right, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm Steve Michaels. Have a good one.
I am Duke Ross.
You are Duke Ross?
I am.